All right, this is going to be one of my most ambitious projects yet, and probably the first video series that I've ever created. And in this series, in this playlist, we're going to walk through end to end how to build a really complex application. And this isn't going to be like a 20-minute tutorial. This is going to be built over the course of several weeks. And the reason I want to do this is to show you what it's like to build a real working project, because I feel like most vibe coding videos are just that, they're videos. And the truth is, building a project takes a lot longer than 20 minutes. And so my goal is to do something I've always wanted to do, which is recreate the way that I track my workouts and the way that I log all of my fitness work. So if you didn't know, I'm into fitness, and I've been into competitive Olympic weightlifting and now bodybuilding and powerlifting. So I train just for fun. I don't compete anymore. But I have this way that I've been logging my workouts and programming that I've been doing for the last few years, and it works for me. But the way that I manage it is really bad. So we're going to try and improve that over the course of this video series. And you're going to follow along as I go through the logic of what this application looks like and how to translate that into a working application going through every single piece of the app. So to lay the groundwork in this video, we're going to go over the structure and the logic of the application, and then talk through an architecture. And then we're going to start building things in the next episode. So what are we building? Well, there's this thing called Stronger by Science. It's a great website. Greg Nuckols does extremely good evidence-based content around how to build strength and muscle. And there's some free templates that you can check out here. So we have a program bundle here in front of us. But let's take a look at what this looks like in practice and then at the instructions. Because for building with AI, largely what we're doing is we're translating logic and English into working code. So in front of me, I have the instructions. So this is my spreadsheet. It's a little modified because really it only makes sense to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down. We're going to decompose it. And then we're going to go through like more explicit logic of how this spreadsheet works. So maybe this is the first thing you were expecting in a vibe coding video, but the goal with programming basically is to take our domain knowledge, which is the thing we want to create, and translate it into technical working code. We're going to do that with AI here. So basically what I do is every week has like sort of a column here. So you can see this is like week 8 and this is week 9. And for a given week, I have my days on the left. So day 1 is like a warm up. Don't pay too much attention to these titles. They don't really make sense, and it's not super important. But when I'm building this program, I'm basically creating exercises, as you'll see, and then filling them in on the left manually. And then the weights are determined by the program. So basics, this is a 21-week program with 3 7-week cycles. And every 7th week is a deload week, so the reps and the sets are decreased. Currently, I'm on week 9, I think. Actually, week 10. Today's the first day of week 10. So I'm about to do this workout after this video here, day 1, week 10. So let me show you how it works. So the exercises that I've highlighted in orange here are technically accessory exercises. So what that means is that I'm doing straight sets, so 3 sets of 12. And then if I complete those successfully, next set will be 4 sets of 12. And I have those increasing on a sets then reps basis. So what you'll see here is that if we, from week 1 to week 9, now I'm doing 4 sets of 16. Previously, I was doing 3 sets of 16. And then if I hit 4 sets of 16, it goes to 5 sets of 16. And then the reps would go up until we hit like an edge or upper rep limit. So in our quick setup, we'll actually be able to, or rather, this is why we're trying to build an app for this, right? This is a very complicated, but in the setup tab, I believe, you can see we have a bunch of different rep schemes, and I can't even really remember where this one is, if I'm being honest. So it's in here somewhere. I might not be using. So the cool thing about these templates is that they come with a bunch of different progressions. So you can do like all these crazy different types of progressions, but they're really complicated to set up. I'm pretty sure this is the configuration for this sets then reps increase. So starting sets, ending sets. So you can see we're starting at 3, we're ending at 5, starting at 8 reps, ending at 12 reps. So this would progress as 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 8, bump it up to 10. 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10. And as long as we keep hitting those, we keep going up in reps then sets. And then eventually we start bumping up the weight. So that's how I program typically my accessory work. And then the green pieces here are the compound lifts. So deadlift, pause back squat, dumbbell bench, incline bench, back squat, RDL, etc. And there's a bit different progression. So these are using the last set to failure progression from the instructions here. So if we read through some of these instructions, the reason we have the instructions open is because they're going to be really useful for prompting, and they have all the logic of how this spreadsheet works. But if we look at how things work, I can break it down for you. It's not super complicated. Each week, typically from a start to a finish of a program, you want to start high rep and then progressively go lower rep to build strength, but also even in hypertrophy, that's useful. There are two different goals that one could have in a program like this, and one is to build muscle, and the other is to actually just get stronger. And there's actually a difference, right? So if you're trying to increase your 1 rep max back squat, you'd want to stick to lower reps. If you're trying to actually grow the muscle in your quadriceps, you'd want to go with higher reps. And so you can configure that in the quick setup here. We can choose for each lift that we're putting in, if it's an auxiliary lift, the rounding of the weights, and then I believe in the actual setup, we might be setting, trying to find this out here. In the actual setup, we usually select if we're using the hypertrophy template. So again, there's all these different options that you can use. We're going to start very simple and then build these into our application. So back squat, right? Hypertrophy template. That means it's going to be higher rep. Pause back squat. No, it's going to be lower rep. So typically that's reflected in the program. And so we'll see, as I mentioned, I'm doing last set to failure. That's how I get all these kind of crazy sets that I post about on Twitter sometimes. And so what this means here is 5 sets of 9. Final set goal is 11. And then I log what I actually got on the final set. So I didn't get to 11. And what's going to happen is this weight, because I didn't hit that last set, actually goes down on the next week, right? Because I was a little below what I should have been. Now, if it beats, right? So let's find one where I went over a little bit. Actually didn't beat any sets this week. It's a bummer. Oh no, wait, we're on week 10. I did beat some sets. So you can see back squat, I was supposed to get 10, I got 20. That's pretty damn good. My weight goes up a lot next week. So in that sense, it's auto-regulating. Now there's another little actually kind of Easter egg here that we can do. I've hidden this because I don't do them as much anymore, is we can hit a top set. And what that means is just work up to a heavy single at RPE, rate of perceived exertion, 8. If you don't know what RPE is, you should read about it. But that's just like, okay, I could do maybe 3 reps at this thing. It's like kind of hard, but not too hard. If I do my single here, and this would be the estimated weight for my single, and it turns out that as this is 455, what you're going to see is that my estimated 1 rep bumps up, my back squat for the week bumps up. So basically, whoops, Z, this is like our estimated 1 rep max. And if we beat, so like even if we just do a heavy single and it's like 415, we're going to increase our working weights and bump our estimated 1 rep max. So this is a really good way to regulate. And you can see this is even a bit low for me. Like I know my 1 rep max is 455, and that's why I beat so much this week. But my 1 rep max calculation is being increased up the next week. So this is a way to auto-regulate. Similarly, if I went in on week 10 and I was just like feeling a little under the weather, maybe I only get 350. That's all right. We're going to bump this down and I'm going to do lower working sets. So that's what I mean when I say auto-regulation. And it's a really good way within your weeks or within your days to make sure that you're pushing yourself, because the goal of strength training isn't actually just to beat yourself up every day. It's to push yourself to the maximum that you can push yourself within some bounds on a given day, on a given week, over the course of a given program. And so we're going to build this. We're going to build this into our app. This is going to be really fun. But what we have to do is we have to start thinking about this. So we have like exercises, and these need to be configured at the start of the program. And then they really don't change, you know. This may be like a stretch goal, is to allow variation within program. An example is like, oh, hey, say I'm traveling and there's not a leg press. Well, maybe I want to do like a hack squat, or I want to do like a safety or a Smith machine modified like leg press, basically. So that would be cool, but we're not going to list that as like a P0. Actually, let's use Ps. So, like software engineering, you'd think like P0, P1, P2, etc. We'll list the priorities here to give us some better sense of what to work on. So P0 is configure our exercises at the start of the program. We need our auto-regulation. We need our progression for core exercises. So that means last set to failure, because that's what I do. Sets, then reps increase. There's also some pretty cool pyramid stuff you can do, which I think would be really fun, like just kind of mix up different exercises. The things that we need to be configured are estimated 1 rep maxes for each lift. If it's a hypertrophy lift, so that's like high reps. The rounding. Let's take a look. Hypertrophy template. These are all generated, so this is like our projected, right? Like, oh, projected you can do 50% for 20 reps. Auxiliary lift, I guess. Projected maxes. I erred on the lower side for these just because it auto-regulates, so I wanted to start intentionally light and then build up. I think that's something we could probably build into our program. Typical set ranges, that's something else to configure. Probably spelled this wrong. All right. So P0. Whoops. All right, whatever. I don't know how to use TLDraw. So P0, we're configuring these things at the start of the program. P2 is allowing variation within the program. I would even say like skipping certain days, because that happens from time to time. We're all busy. Oh, other like very basic things, like number of days. How many days are you training? Number of weeks of program. Slash. Actually, I keep these pretty standard, so let's set that as a P1. Slash micro slash cycle duration. So for example, maybe I want to do 21 weeks total with 7 weeks of these smaller workouts. Maybe I want to do 20 with 5 weeks, so deal it every 4 weeks rather than every 7 weeks. That's all acceptable. It's all good. A lot of this is just kind of what we want to do. So there's a good friend of mine, he talks about like lifting or whatever a lot. And there's like a mid-width curve where it's like, when you start out, you're trying to optimize everything. Or actually, when you start out, you're just doing things you enjoy. And then somewhere in the middle, you're trying to optimize everything. And then at the end, again, you're just doing what you enjoy. So I think there's something to that. So P1, this is not letting me indent things for some reason. Come on, TLDraw. There we go. P0, auto-regulation is P0. So RPE single auto-regulation. And then what else are we doing? Basically beating last set on compound lifts. And this is where we can start to look at our instructions. Right, so if I get confused, if I go in here, I start poking around, we can start to see maybe what's going on. I'm going to kind of have to dig into the internals here, I think, to get what's going on. So here we go. Last set, reps to failure. If there are 5 sets, this is the logic, right? And we're below the rep target by 2 plus reps, we lose 5%. If we're below the rep target by 1 rep, we lose 2%. And so you can see here, right? This determines how much we're going to increase and decrease if we fail or if we succeed. So if we're feeling bad or if we're feeling good. So this is the logic for the actual app. This is important, right? And so what we're doing here, like this is just kind of software, right? Software is just logic. What we're doing, actually, this is maybe not the most efficient way to do this. Just take a screenshot. What we're doing is we're taking logic and then we're turning it into code. And the reason I like this example, because we're using Excel here, is because almost everybody watching this video has probably used Excel before. But it's pretty rare that you're like actually doing a bunch. You're coding in some sense, but it's not really code, right? And so with AI, it actually is a lot like Excel in the sense that we're just taking all of these things and building the logic in. So we need to set our number of days. We need to auto-regulate, configure these exercises at the start of the program. We need the last set to failure progression, sets then reps increase progression, and our pyramid, which will be P2, because that's different progressions. Pyramid. All right. I think this is like kind of, if I think of more stuff, we'll edit this. But now what I'm going to think about is the different screens that we need, right? So like I'm thinking we're going to do some wireframing. Screen 1. So basically, if no program, we want to start a new program. Now, a P2 here will be to view past programs. And then P3 is actually going to be add in logging for 1 rep maxes on all exercises. I do that in a separate spreadsheet. Too many spreadsheets, but that would be another really great thing to start building in. So if no program, start a new program, there's going to be just like a button here that's like, you know, start or something. This is going to be a very loose wireframe. Screen 2 is going to be like program builder. So we need a program builder. Program builder. And what the program builder is going to look like is doing all of this. Estimated 1 rep maxes, if the lift is hypertrophy, rounding for the lift. If it's auxiliary, typical set ranges for the lift, order sets. Typical set rep ranges depending on the progression that we want. Screen 3, ideally we configure that is the program, right? So ideally this all works and then we get our program. Now we wouldn't want to present the entire program, but what we'd want to do is present week 1. Boom. And it would be like, you know, this day 1. And so then we can click into a button and we'd enter day. So screen 4, whoops. And what would be useful is if instead of naming these screens, we actually just name them welcome program builder dashboard with program. daily lift. One thing I never do that I think I should do is log how long my sessions take. So when we enter the day, we should really like start a timer, and then we have our like exercise 1, and there's like a box, and that's like RPE 8 single. There's a box that's if we you know, should tell us like, okay, 4 sets of 8, 1 set to failure, goal 10 reps. So RPE 8 single, all sets completed, and then set to failure. One thing that this program doesn't do that I don't like is like, hey, like this has happened to me before. Say I'm just feeling really bad and I can't even complete 8 reps on the normal sets. There's no way for me to just tick a box that says, hey, dude, I feel really bad and we're just going to down regulate this and like chill out this week. That would be something nice to have. So that's what I'm talking about here. So we have our daily lift. And then at the end of this, there should be like some complete button that ends the day and stops the timer. And then what would be really nice is if we had a summary page that the summary page is going to list workout of the day and give stats. Because we don't like stats, but not like bullshit stats, not stats for like every other app, but like, actual useful things, duration. We could do like, there could be like some sort of score based on up/down regulation. Like if you're crushing all the weights, like we should be like, your score today is cool, is good. What's next? So like, next day is Friday, upper push, right? Like maybe some sort of reminder, something like that. Summary would be cool. And then basically the cool thing, right, is that like these are repeated. So it's kind of like every day you get these guys. So it's basically like welcome program builder dashboard with program. And then let's draw this out here. You get your program. We're going to go into these. These kind of like continue for the duration of program. And then there should be like a program conclusion screen. Program summary. It's a little small. Stats. That would be cool. And once the program is done, then we go back to the welcome screen. Right? That was a little too, we could consolidate this a bit. So we go through this like program, this week, at some point, right, there's like a deload week, and then we're going to go back out here to the program summary. Then we're going to kick you out to the welcome page. Whoops, can't draw a straight line. And then the prompt is going to be like, if past program summary from past program. And my hope would be that over time, we can start to do some fun stuff with the data here, right? So we got welcome program builder. Then we go into our dashboard for our program. We're going to go through basically days and weeks in a cycle. So it's kind of like a while loop, right? Like while true, we're just like going through the cycle. Once it's over, and there'll be deload weeks in here, we get kicked out into our program summary. We go back to the welcomes page. If no program exists, we start a new program and we just start it all over again. That's the type of fitness that I do. Now, the different thing about this is that data structures are going to be really important, right? Like this is all built on data. And actually, I think like if we define the data schema right for this app, that's going to be most of the app. Like if the data structures are correct, the app is mostly built. Because the two pieces of this app really are just going to be one, data structures, and two, logic, right? Like all that really matters are our logging of the data and then what we do with that data. And so I just described the logic here, basically, of the flow of the application. We kind of know, so let's label this actually. This is like our flow. Actually, I think I can frame these. Yeah, we'll frame this guy. This frame is our flow. Then we'll do another frame. This will be our data. And then another frame. This will be our logic. So we already started talking about the logic a little bit. The logic are things like, like if, so basically the screenshot. This is our logic. So, below by 2 plus reps, minus 5%, below by 1 rep, minus 2%, hit target 0%, beat 1.5%, beat 2, 1%, beat 3, 1.5%, beat 4, 2%, beat 5, plus 3%. P2 is going to be to configure all these. So, right, we talked about, I just got lost on this page. P2 is like customizing beat miss percentages as well as RPE 8 beat miss, right? So there are two ways to think about this. We could, we increase if we're feeling good on those heavy singles. We increase if we're beating those percentages. So that's another way to think about it. So I'll leave the logic for now. Now we're going to talk about the data structure. The logic honestly might be another video. We'll see how long it takes us to get through the data structure, but this is going to be a little complicated. So we're going to walk through it. What's a good way to start with data structures? What is the finest grain necessary we need? But even more than that, what are the primitives we need? So there are exercises, there are sets, there are reps. What else? Okay. There are programs. A program is comprised of cycles. A cycle is comprised of weeks. A week is comprised of days. A day is comprised of exercises. Each exercise has a set, and each set has some reps. And that's the finest granularity possible. Now, what we're not going to be doing is logging each individual rep, right? So there is a set, and then each set is comprised of set like 4 by 8, right? So 4 by 8. What we're not going to be doing is saying rep 1, cool, rep 2, cool. No, we're not doing that. What we're doing is we do 8 reps, and then we say we completed that set or we did not complete that set. So actually the finest grain possible that we're going to be logging here is the set level. So we do not need, for example, a table for our reps. So I like to think about this as these are probably our tables, right? And we could go through this by ourselves. I think that would be honestly a bit tedious. I don't recommend that. Let's actually just pop over to Claude. I'm building an app that's going to help me track my workouts. It is comprised of the following primitives: program, cycles, days, exercises, sets, and reps. The program is evidence-based, and we're going to allow the users to configure the duration of the program, the length of each cycle, the exercises that feed into the programs, and there'll be variations for each week. For example, the user might want to do a different exercise on a given day because they're traveling or because they don't have access to a certain piece of equipment. So what do we want to say? Help me come up with a data model for this application that considers the set as the finest grain possible that we want people to be able to log. For example, users aren't going to be logging every single rep. They're merely going to log if they accomplished the given reps on a certain set. What else is important here? So programs, cycles, weeks, days. A day is composed of exercises, but the exercises might change for a given day, so we'd want to be able to log that. I think we're good here. I'm just going to add a bit more description and tell Claude a bit more what my goal is, but what is my goal? My goal is to have an extensible and flexible data model that allows the user to accurately configure their program, but also that affords the possibility that someone changes an exercise on a given day. The most important thing is that we log all data and we don't discard anything. Let's see what Sonnet 4.5 has for us. I think this is pretty good. Usually what I'm going for with AI here is I want to get to 80%, 70 or 80%, and then I want to fill in the gaps with a human touch with our knowledge. Workout sessions. Okay, I like that actually. Can you draw a diagram of our data model so I can visualize it? I think this just might be useful. So an ER diagram or an entity relationship diagram is a way of visualizing relationships for data structures. So what I'm asking Claude here is to make a nice little entity relationship diagram. Program cycle. I don't even know if cycle is the right term. Is cycle the right term? Is it mesocycle or macrocycle? This is the other part I love about AI. We can kind of like learn on the go. So macrocycle is the entire trading program. Mesocycle is the blocks, and microcycle is a week. Update the programs to use these terms. Boom. Okay, so we have our programs. We're going to get our nice little data model with the right terminology in there. Sweet. So we have our program. Let's take a look at this. We have our program. There is a description, default duration, weeks. The program is comprised of mesocycles with a duration weeks. The mesocycles are comprised of microcycles, which is a given week. Each microcycle has a day, has days. Each day has planned exercises. Each day has workout sessions that have planned exercises. And then there are performed exercises. See, this is good because you might miss an exercise in a given day, or you might miss a day entirely. And then logged sets, actually done. It goes, okay, so exercises, workout sessions, exercises, planned exercises, exercises, performed exercises. Not clear to me how these things relate, but I think that it might just be confusing because of the overlap here. Exercise substitutions. Often I find with AI, we're asking it to simplify rather than add more complexity. So I think this is starting to look good. Let's think through this critically though. Yeah, we don't need to log equipment required. We will be logging the time of each session, but not each exercise. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of start refining this program based on the data model. Muscle groups is good. This is, when I'm writing my programs, actually quite difficult because I have to manually think about what muscle group goes into these exercises, and then I have to do like a roll up to make sure I'm working each muscle group enough. But that's actually an excellent opportunity for AI, is to supply a bunch of different exercises and automatically populate the muscle group. So one thing we're going to want to do is in our P2 requirements is AI categorization of muscle groups. That'll be really cool. And we'll be able to add in more, we're going to be able to change this data structure. But the really important thing, though, is when we start the program, when we start the app, we cannot make drastic modifications to this data structure. And that, like there are implications there, because there can be the possibility of basically nuking the data structure if we really mess this up, which is why it's important to get this at least somewhat correct. Program instances. Programs instantiated as. Okay, so once you create a program, what is a program instance? Okay. I like this. This is actually a good idea, because basically what we're saying is we create a program and then we can restart the program. For each exercise, we will be logging progressions. Have a progression. Help me determine a data structure for those progressions. I actually think the more I think about this, I'm pretty sure this data model is going to be the most useful context we can give to an AI agent, because this is going to contain most of the logic and the way things work. Name, description, progression type, linear, percentage based, config, stores rules, is system, built-in versus user created. This is really great. It's saying it wants me to start simpler. I don't like that. I think this should be just stored in a schema in the data. Start with 2 progressions. Last set to failure for compound exercises, and sets then reps increase. Okay, cool. Now we'll start to add in some more of our logic. Exercises for the program will either be hypertrophy, so focused on building muscle, or strength focused. That relates directly to if the exercise is a primary or an accessory lift. Sometimes it's really hard to think through this stuff. For strength-based lifts or compound lifts, there should be the option for an RPE 8 single that can also affect the auto regulation. So that could tie into a exercise progression state. That will not exist for accessory lifts. It will exist for any compound lifts. They could be hypertrophy or strength focused, but not accessory lifts. So it's really interesting, actually. this is like, what we're doing here is we're actually just taking a lot of logic and building it in Claude here. Just, it's all logic. And I'm using AI to come up with that logic. Okay, let's take a look at our options. How can we capture these updates and all of the logic in our data structure while keeping it as simple as possible? Okay, I actually like this a lot. Simplify everything as you suggested. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all of the data and we're going to consolidate it into fewer tables. Now, I think this exercise is useful because we're understanding what we need kind of as we work through this, and now we're going to whittle it down. It's kind of like in writing. Like a lot of times I'll just write as much as I can to get all the ideas out of my mind, and then most of the work is actually in removing things that are unnecessary. And I'm using AI to help me out with that. There should also be a is hypertrophy field. Boom. Is compound is hypertrophy. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Right? If we go over to our TL draw instance in our logic section, you can basically have there's basically like actually, why did I do that? The video isn't long enough for me to be getting loopy already. So basically it's like we have that's interesting. Oh my god, this is hideous. What am I doing? Okay, cool. There's like compound and accessory, and then there's hypertrophy. There's strength. So this would be like back squats, high volume. So the goal here is build muscle, practice, compound, lifts. I love how this video is just mostly about strength training. I swear we're going to be building stuff soon. Hypertrophy accessory, this is just get big. That's easy peasy, man. Compound strength, get strong. We don't really do low rep accessory works. This is not an issue. So that's good logic to have there. Let's go through the rest of our data schema with a fine-tooth comb. Can we remove anything else? Remove that. Yep. Remove that. Remove Actually, let's keep the description in there. Remove description from meso, micro. I like the notes. Probably want to keep notes. keep the notes. Move notes. So what I'm thinking now, actually, maybe key 2 would be some sort of notes. Weekly review / notes, daily notes as well. And then you can do some fun like AI roll-ups. Notes. That's kind of like further down the line. Remove all other properties that are derived from other parts of the data structure. We really want to eliminate redundancy as a potential source of error. So what I'm thinking here is actually from this data model, we're probably going to get our initial prompt too. So once I define this data model, all of the stuff that I've been telling Claude is kind of in context. And so we're going to keep iterating on this a little bit more, but then like I largely advocate for just starting to build the thing. So we'll probably move forward to that. The only other real upfront work I think we need to do is probably some design thinking, but that can be accommodated largely in our first prompt. We're going to use Replit for this one just because I know Replit has all of the pieces that I need for this app. And I'm going to be able to recreate it pretty simply using Replit. And when I say pretty simply, this is obviously complicated. So if you feel like I'm not some kind of secret genius, I just mean we can do this all in Replit. I know we can do it all in Replit, and that's why this is going to be the best go round. There's one other thing that we're going to need to do though, and that is we need a users table. The last piece is that we need a users table because multiple people can be trying this app, and programs should be either private or public. You should be able to make your program public for other people to use, but by default they should be private, and we need a users table that can like wrap this entire thing. Boom. So we get our users table. Users create programs. Programs create mesocycles, microcycles, days, workout sessions, planned exercises, performed exercises, which all feed into exercises, exercise substitutions, logged sets, progression state, program instances. Users should also be able to create progressions. That's a P3. Cool. I think we're getting close here. This feels really good. And I think this is going to be a really good first prompt. All right, cool. Thanks for sticking around. I got to go hit week 10, day 1. I told you all about it. This has been the first video and also the introduction to our build. So you're going to follow along as we're building out this app. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the logic and all of the domain-specific expertise that I have from this template with Stronger by Science. Shout out Greg Nichols. You're the man. I know you're building an app. I'm going to try and build this before you and make a better app than you can. That's just how it be. And we're implementing that in sort of our own data structure. So I'm walking through how I'm thinking about that. We're going to turn this data structure into more formal logic, and then we're going to pass the logic and the data structure into Replit Agent as our first prompt as we go along. That's probably going to be the second video, but this is actually a very good start. Very happy with this, but I'll see you in the second video. Peace.